Hello, my name is Kellie Doyle Bailey, and I'm the Social Emotional Learning Specialist for the Maine Department of Education. Thank you for joining me for this webinar training, this virtual training on emotional intelligence. Today, my topic is regulation to co-regulate, and it's essential for every student to be successful in school. And I know that I don't have to really tell you how important it is for us as educators to really be integrated and regulated for our children who are really coming from different spaces and places, especially kids who are possibly coming from away from different cultures and countries to Maine and all that entails. But I can't assume that everyone who is here and watching maybe for the first time and learning about emotional intelligence and especially social emotional learning and how important it is that we convey the message that we really need to take care of ourselves so that we can take care of our students and really have a successful place where all children feel valued, represented, seen, connected, safe, so that they can do their work in an optimal way. So I'm going to get started here. I'm so sorry I wasn't able to be with you in person, but we are here today and hopefully you can get a little bit out of this. I like to start out my seminars by just saying thank you so much for showing up. Obviously, if we were in person and you were sitting in these comfortable chairs, I would be expressing my sincere and deep gratitude for you being in that space. Wherever you have chosen to sit today to listen to this training, just thank you on behalf of Commissioner Macon and my director, Julie Smythe, and our entire Department of Education. Thank you for everything that you do to support students in the state. Thank you for listening to this training today. I was really invited to share about emotional intelligence. And before I do that, I have a question because I really have absolutely no idea how your day has been up until this point. I know how my day has been, and I know that there have been some highs and some lows. I know that working from home for the Department of Education, I have lots of responsibilities and obligations and getting on Zooms and running meetings and some downtime, but I don't know what your day has been like. And so I have to just be very mindful that just because you have hopped on this Zoom call and you are logging into this training, that you may not be ready to learn. Just because you are here in this space right now doesn't mean that you are truly here and that your mind might be someplace else or you might be multitasking. So it's something for me as the emotional intelligence person for the state that I like to convey, just that message that I'm really curious and interested in how are you and how has your day been? And just in the spirit of emotional intelligence and social emotional learning for our students, and when we do this work with our students, to really sit in that space of true curiosity and just non-assuming that just because bodies are in front of us that we really take the time to consider, I wonder if this class or these students that are here with me, if they're ready to listen and hear the message that I have. Because I really don't have to remind everybody that we are still in this COVID pandemic, that we are living in this state of uncertainty, that we've been doing this for a really long time, and that it isn't a new normal. If you ever have listened to my colleague at the state, Bear Shea, who's our mental health coordinator, you know that he says that we are just in this current, we've been in the persistent state of crisis, and the body just leans into that, but that there's still this this dysregulation, and that the brain and the body is not equipped to deal long term with crisis, and that our body and our brain build up that neurochemistry that reacts to that. And it's really important for us to recognize and understand that our children who are coming from places of crisis, or who are holding on to, or who have been through trauma, or are being traumatized by systems of education that possibly don't align with best practices for how they can learn best. That this is detrimental to them. So it's really important for us to just take a second and really tune in and ask ourselves, how's it going? And recognize that this really has been what we've been in, and our kids have been in for a really long time. And it's confusing, and it's tricky to understand, and it's difficult for us to continue to manage without truly taking small, still moments to reconnect, reset, reframe, and refocus. So I'd like to ask that question before I start with the work and the message that I'd like to convey today, and ask us, how are we doing? And have you taken a moment to ask yourself that today? How many of us truly take that second to say, how am I doing? Or do we go through our day powering through with a state of automaticity? I'd like to give us an invitation to become unbusy. So if you are watching this webinar today, I would invite you to give yourself permission to put maybe your cell phone away just for a moment, put your pens down, and just ask yourself this question: how am I feeling right this moment? And where does that feeling possibly live inside my body? Just really sit with that. Sit with that invitation, really reflect, maybe make a mental awareness. If you want to, you can write it down. Some people really need that tangible piece, and that's okay. Once you've written that word or that thought, put that away. And then allow yourself to really sink in just for a few moments while I walk us through just a mindful space to become unbusy. Before I came to the Department of Education, I taught at the University of Maine in Farmington, graduate level class in mindfulness and education. And mindfulness in my work is really about present moment awareness from a brain-based perspective, helping people understand that when we feel safe and connected and okay, the prefrontal cortex can relax and engage, that my central nervous system can integrate, that all the systems of the body can relax and work in harmony, and that my amygdala does not need to be in a state of hypervigilance, that I don't need to be in that place of protection, looking for danger, and deciding whether or not I need to react with fight, flight, freeze, or submit. So taking small moments out of my day to breathe on purpose, to notice where my shoulders are, to just relax. So if you're so inclined, my invitation is for you to feel your feet on the floor. Notice where your body is. Tune in on purpose to your breathing, noticing the rise and fall of your belly and your chest with each in-breath and out-breath. If you feel safe, close your eyes or soften them. Again, allow yourself just a moment of unbusyness. Maybe allow your hands to rest comfortably in your lap or by your side. And just notice what comes up in your mind. Brain science tells us that 47% of the time that we're awake, we're engaged in a memory, having a thought, or busy making a plan. That's a lot of busyness of the mind. Sometimes those plans and memories and thoughts can be pleasant and bring us joy or peace. And sometimes those thoughts and memories can evoke strong feelings, sadness or worry or fear or dread can dysregulate us. So when we take moments to be present right here, right now on purpose, we recognize and realize that thoughts and feelings and plans have not happened, or they have happened, but they aren't happening right this moment. Right this moment, there's no place to go and there's nothing to do. Present moment awareness, being curious and interested in the things we hear right this moment. Maybe tune into the sounds that you hear inside wherever you are sitting. Pay attention to sounds outside of the room. Notice on purpose any sounds you hear within your own body, maybe sounds of your own breathing. Notice any sensations that you can feel or temperature of the room, maybe clothing making contact with your body, hair on your head, jewelry touching your skin. Wiggle your toes inside of your shoes and notice that they've been here the whole time. Notice your body being supported by the chair. Maybe putting one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart. And with each in-breath, really notice that rise and fall in unison of your belly and your chest. Placing both hands over your heart, actually noticing the unique rhythm of your own heartbeat. And as you tune in to your own heart, notice how it gets stronger. Maybe while we're sitting here, just give yourself a little gratitude, saying, "Thank you, heart, for keeping me alive with all the systems of my body today without my awareness or having to tell any of the parts of my body how to keep me alive. Just quietly doing the job of being alive." Notice how the heart leaps at that recognition and gratitude. You can feel it under your heart, under your hand. Notice your shoulders. Notice if there's any stress in your shoulders or your back. Dropping your shoulders just a little lower. Notice your neck. Allow a little space between your top teeth and your bottom teeth, opening your mouth ever so slightly and letting your tongue be loose inside of your mouth. Notice any stress around your eyebrows and your eyes and your cheeks and your forehead. Maybe let your legs and your arms be heavy and long like a rag doll. Just sitting long and heavy, relaxed, grounded, centered, right here, right now, present, no place to go, unbusy, nothing to do. If you notice your brain, your mind start to wander, you can give yourself an anchor word like here or breathing. And we'll just sit and hold space for ourselves, one another collectively, just for a moment. If you notice yourself starting to tick off the time, just remind yourself, breathing. Allow yourself to be curious for whatever comes up for you. I'll invite us back to this physical space in just a few seconds. Slowly bringing yourself back to this physical space by wiggling your toes. Taking 3 slow collective breaths in through our nose, out through our mouth, in through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, and out through your mouth. When you're ready, blink your eyes awake. You can stretch or stand, whatever works for you. Arch your back, roll your wrists. And maybe tune in and ask yourself the question again, how do I feel now? And is that different than how you felt maybe a few moments before? And maybe it's not. Maybe it's not any different at all. And if you're not used to taking just a moment to self-assess or become self-aware of how you're doing, then that might feel unusual. And that's okay. That's okay. Helping people who work with youth understand the premise calm brain to calmer brain is some of the most important work that I do as the SEL specialist for the state. And ultimately, we have to have a good understanding that it really all begins with us. Regulation for the business of co-regulation is really the science of optimal learning, and it's the work that I've been doing for a very, very long time, and it really is my passion. And I'm really glad that I'm here to be able to share that with you. If any of you know the work of Dr. Daniel Goleman, then you know that he was the person that first introduced emotional intelligence back in 1995, and it really stemmed from his work in the corporate, helping people in the corporate world understand that in order for people to be happy and productive in business and in productivity, that we all had to be working in a collaborative sort of way, that we needed to be happy and engaged and in right relationship with one another, and that in order for the product to be out in the world in a useful way and to be able to make money, we had to be able to communicate effectively and work as a team. And that caught on in the world of education by CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, Emotional Learning, and they developed a framework for educators to use to assist students to become productive, caring people. we really know that that work needs to begin with us as the adults, and to help cultivate our own understanding of who we are based on where we've been, who we were raised by, what supports we had along the way to shape us, to who we have now become in the world. And I don't know about you, but I didn't have a lot of this work in emotional intelligence when I was a child. So we've become really more mindfully aware that we need to be purposeful and intentional about these teachings of self-awareness and self-management, all of the frameworks that Dr. Goldman talked about that I'm going to lay out here. But these are not new concepts. Emotional intelligence has been around for a very long time. And really what we're talking about here, Aristotle talked about way back when, saying that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Really not a new concept, but maybe a forgotten one. We have dumped and we have made assessments and outcomes and benchmarks so important that we have forgotten about connection and relationship and how important that is. And I don't think I need to tell you that, that children who are learning English as a new language, that how difficult this is, how difficult when we put assessments on top of learning a new language and making all of that so important, that what the outcomes for that is. So the relationships that we form to all children, but especially children who are learning new languages while they're also learning all of the skill sets for their developmental, along with their developmental peers, and trying to make connections with their peers is so critical. So according to Dr. Goldman, he said that emotional intelligence really consists of 4 primary attributes. And he talked about them in this way. Self-awareness is really our recognition of our own emotions, thoughts, and feelings, and how those thoughts and feelings and emotions impacted our behaviors. He talked about self-management. This is our ability to control our impulses, have self-control, stress management, and the ability to follow through with our commitments and adapt to new situations, so our adaptability. He talked about social awareness, is allowing us to step in another person's shoes, to take deeper perspective, have empathy and compassion for other people, to have a level of concern for all humanity. And there's a recognition and value in equity. And he talked about relationship management, understanding how to develop and maintain and nurture healthy relationships. And I would say that begins with having a healthy relationship with ourselves, conflict management, and really working as a team. Castle took that further and talked about that also this can impact with responsible decision making. So I have this beautiful little 6-minute video that I'd like to show you. And this just outlines how these competencies have been paired into the 5 elements for social emotional learning.
Social and emotional skills are the essential skills for success in school, work, and life.
Social emotional learning centers their mind and body. It reduces their emotional tension so they can be open to new content and material. We find that academic outcomes increase exponentially when students are nurtured, loved, and cared for, that we get much more out of them when we first address social emotional needs. So for us, it's actually an academic intervention and not just an emotional one.
If we expect students to be college and career ready, it's important for us to focus on these skills and competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Self-awareness is the ability to identify your emotions, to be able to tie thoughts and feelings to behaviors.
We find that self-awareness is one of the hardest things for young people, being aware of their own body space and the impact of their words and emotions on other people. So a lot of the work we do is reflective through conflict mediation, through circles, through journaling, having them see their own impact on the world and then how to shift that or make a different choice next time.
Self-management is the ability to self-motivate, to have self-control, to regulate one's emotions.
In the classroom, that may be a breathing exercise, or that might be counting to 5 or taking a break.
So with students who don't really know how to deal with their anger or don't really know how to resolve conflict, we're giving them a tool that helps them deal with it in a less stressful way.
Social awareness is about embracing diversity, showing empathy for others. Activities might include service learning projects, addressing social justice issues. Role-playing is a great opportunity for students to address how a person might have felt in a conflict on the playground.
We're going to see if other people have had some of the very same experiences around bullying that we've had.
You're in my boat if you have a bully now.
Wow, I see a lot of people.
Relationship skills are important in project-based learning. It's the ability to work cooperatively with someone, to resolve conflict.
It's the one skill you need your whole life. You may not need calculus tomorrow, but you have to know how to work in relationship, whether it's for a coworker or a life partner. You have to know how to handle conflict and how to handle challenges.
Sometimes at recess, Miney would come over and just start talking about us and saying mean things.
Is it your job to make Danae's job at school hard?
No, I know it's a form of bullying, and sometimes I'll say sorry to her.
So you choose to be someone's ally and make a better choice.
Responsible decision-making is considering the well-being for self and others. It's evaluating the consequences for various behaviors or actions. We do this through shared agreements, one-to-one problem solving, or having students debate an issue.
If you were like, hey, Kashida, how much does an A cost in this class? And you took out your wallet and I was like, I think $50 would work. Which one of us would be corrupt in that case?
You're the one that's asking for the money?
We're truly teaching these students to be productive citizens. We're teaching them life skills. We're teaching them how to problem solve effectively. We're teaching them how to be resilient.
I think of all the billions of dollars we've spent on Title I and all these intervention programs. And when all is said and done, what do we have to show for it? I think we're trying to teach technical things instead of devoting some of the resources to teach who you are as a person. Once you know who you are, then learning becomes exciting because you've already established a discipline.
It's important for teachers and principals to understand that it can't be a binder off the shelf. It can't be something that happens from 2:15 to 4:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It has to be part of the school culture.
Giving teachers flexibility, giving them a range of skills, giving them different ways that it can look, and allowing them to take their own personality and match that to what they want in their classroom has been the best way to get authentic, true practice.
If we continue to do what we've always done, we're always going to get what we always got. Is that good enough? I don't think it's good enough for the 21st century. We need to be the outliers to try things that have never been tried and see if they work. What are we waiting for?
So that was a nice video from Edutopia. If you're interested, you can look up edutopia.com, and they have a ton of wonderful resources, especially for SEL and ELL. And if you're interested in more, you can email me and I can let you know about that. So I want to talk about that. It really does begin with us and exploring our own emotional intelligence, and quite possibly the bigger thing here is the gap in our own EQ or emotional quotient. So I love this this diagram here because we're really looking at that heart-brain connection, really showing that emotional intelligence is about responding to my emotions and responding to others' emotions, really developing the appropriate tools for cultivating my emotional intelligence, having a great understanding of what exactly it is, those 5 competencies, and being able to convey this with the kids, not just 2 or 4, and really having the pathways, the neural pathways that are integrated and connected and safe. So let's start with the question. How many of us really spend a lot of our life in that space of automaticity? And when I talk about that, I talk about it from a place of human doingness. I love this picture because it really, because it's such a blur, it really does depict how a lot of us spend our day just in that. Our feet hit the floor as soon as that buzzer goes off on the alarm, or quite possibly we might be somewhere in the other realm where the buzzer goes off and we hit the snooze for 2, 3, 4, or 5 times, where we just kind of delay that, the inevitable of getting up and beginning our day, kind of, dreading the onset of the day. Or we hit it and we hit the ground going and we just boom, whatever our routine is. For some of us, it's run down, get the coffee pot going, run back into our bathroom, and whatever that routine is for the morning. And then before we know it, we're in the closet getting the clothes, and and then we're out the door. We've forgotten our keys, we've forgotten our lunch, we got it all together. We get in the car, we're driving our car all the way to wherever we work, same route, drive into park in the same parking lot, same parking space, run in, same thing. It's just the routine. And how many of us stop in any of those spaces to truly spend a moment to catch our breath, number one, to feel centered and grounded, to spend a moment in a space of gratitude for the idea that we get to do this job, that we get to come to work to be with children and to work with children, to help to shape and mentor and guide children who need us, who are depending on us to be our best selves? Or are we just wrapped up in that day to day, and we come home, and before we know it, our shoulders are up by our ears, and we have neck pain and back pain, and we haven't used the bathroom, we haven't had a drink of water all day, we are eating our lunch on our way to a meeting or on our way home, and we're just not taking good care of ourselves, and we're exhausted and we're running on empty, and we do it day after day after day after day. And that's what human doingness feels like and looks like. And human doingness causes great stress. And chronic stress is linked to 6 leading causes of death in humans, including heart disease, cancer, lung disease, accidents, cirrhosis of the liver, suicide, and this is from the American Psychological Association. Toxic stress is something that no human being is equipped to deal with or can deal with for a long period of time. And everyone feels stressed, and not all stress is harmful, but not everyone, no one, I should say, can deal with chronic toxic stress. When we're caught up in that automaticity of our lives and we don't take time to breathe and slow down, the stress can accumulate and become very, very dangerous. And these are the capacities in which, and all of the ways that stress can affect our bodies, our hearts, and our minds. Within our body, we can start feeling headaches, infections, muscles get tight. We can feel it in different areas of our body. We can get run down, sick, fatigue, skin irritations. We can get out of breath. Within our mind, we can become very worrisome. We're not clear in our thinking. We can have impaired judgment. We can have nightmares, restless sleep, negativity, hasty decisions, rash decisions. Our behavior, we can lose things, become accident prone. We can have maladaptive behaviors. Some of us can drink more, smoke more, have loss of intimacy. Our emotions can get misconveyed. We can have confidence issues, irritability, depression, apathy, apprehension. And remember, again, not all stress is bad. We need to have some level of stress, healthy stress, but not toxic, chronic, long-term stress. It really impacts our overall well-being. And so we have to be attuned to it, dialed in, paying attention on purpose, because the body will begin to shut down. The mind will begin to shut down. And that's when we start recognizing that the amygdala is taking over, and that cortisol, norepinephrine, and adrenaline is starting to be in our bodies at toxic levels. So those are the three major stress hormones, and all of these systems are the things that get impacted. Our nervous system, the heart beats faster, blood pressure rises. We have so many people in the United States on high blood pressure medication. Our muscular skeletal systems, where we have tight muscles and headaches, tension headaches, with people on medications for headaches and going to the chiropractor. Our respiratory system, breathing, cardiovascular system, heart rate increases. People are having strokes and heart attacks. The endocrine system, signals from the glands to the body, where we're releasing cortisol. So we're in that fight, flight, freeze because of perceived threat. It doesn't even have to be real, just perceived. And then we've got the gut, right? The gastrointestinal system, where our eating habits can change. We've got butterflies. Now think about your kids. Think about all of those systems with our kids, especially our kids who are acclimating to new cultures and new climates. Think about your kids that are constantly exit seeking and having to go to the nurse sweating. They have to go to the bathroom. They don't feel good. This is why, because they have stress hormones at toxic levels. They really do. They don't feel good. So I want to just take a step back and ask some questions. Who taught you self-awareness? Ask yourself this question: how old was I? How did I learn these skills? Who taught me how to pay attention on purpose to my thoughts and my feelings? How old was I? Where was I? Or did people just tell me along the way, pay attention? I can tell you that I'm 54 years old, and I don't remember ever being taught on purpose how to pay attention to my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions. I was told plenty. Kellie, pay attention. Kellie, eyes up here. Kellie, listen to this. Kellie, keep your hands to yourself. Kellie, listen. Kellie, be quiet. Kellie, stand in line. But nobody really helped me pay attention to, how does that feel? Where are you feeling it? Nobody helped me process that until I was much older, an adult, when I really started tuning into that and helping me see how that impacted my behavior. What about your self-management skills? And what self-management skills have you developed along the path of your life? How do you pay attention to your emotional health? Or do you avoid and escape, or just put your head down and keep plowing through? What coping mechanisms have you developed? What about your social awareness skills, empathy and compassion and perspective taking? Who helped you develop those skills? And thinking about it from your own self-compassion. Or are you hard on yourself? We can't develop good social awareness, empathy, compassion, and perspective taking for other people if we don't have the ability to be kind to ourselves, to have that self-compassion, to learn from our mistakes, and not tell ourselves over and over and over that the mistakes are who we are, because truthfully, we are so much more than the sum of our mistakes. And when our children come to us and they're learning new things, and especially kids who have difficulty learning a new language or wrapping their brain around new cultures, how do we help them truly understand and believe us if we aren't true to that in our own selves? So who taught you empathy and compassion for yourself? How old were you? Where did you learn those skills? And then we think about how comfortable are we in exploring and creating spaces in our classrooms for cultural responsiveness and awareness, and maybe even conveying that message to our colleagues, how really important it is for representation to be in our schools so that every single child can see themselves in the hallways and in the libraries and on the walls, so that every child feels valued, safe, represented, seen, noticed, loved. What about your relationship with yourself? What kind of self-talk do you do? How do you see, again, the mistakes? Do you see them as opportunities to learn and grow, or do you see them as failures? Do you like the person that you see looking back in the mirror? What kind of self-talk do you do? And are you kind to yourself? And this is so much easier to do for other people, but not for ourselves. And what about your decision-making skills? Who taught you how to engage your prefrontal cortex, your critical thinking, executive function brain? Who taught you how to calm your body and brain when you're flipping your lid and losing your cool? Nobody taught me about the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. This is Dr. Dan Siegel's ham-brain model. I learned this quite a long time ago, but nobody taught it to me when I was younger. I didn't know that I had different parts of my brain, and well, let's be fair, just brain science has exploded in the past 10 or 15 years. Really, neuroplasticity hasn't been around all that long. I remember being a speech pathologist. That's what I was, in schools for 30 years, and mindfulness and social emotional learning really only in the past 5 to 10 years, really putting all that work in the work that I did as an SLP. But even when I worked as a speech language pathologist in stroke rehab rehabilitation, and even with head injury patients, we did not know 30 years ago what we know now with brain reintegration. And I remember working with stroke patients and not having a good understanding. Nobody did, not even doctors, that we could create new neural pathways and help patients develop new neural pathways for speech and language. We got 60 days of rehab. And if you didn't learn how to eat, swallow, talk by then, you were done and you got discharged, and good luck to you. And it was heartbreaking. Now we know so much more about the brain, and we know that the brain can restructure, that there's new neural pathways, and we know that thinking and the mind and power of positivity is so critical. We need to teach these things to kids so that they don't flip their lids and lose their cool. So we have to ask ourselves, are we human beings or human doings? We have to recognize that our reactivity or responsivity is going to help us be calm and cool, and be able to connect in right relationship with children. What is a human being, right? Am I characterized as receptive and active listening, present, patient, accepting, flexible, and curious? And is that, pretty much how I operate most of the day? Or am I on a tear from the moment I wake up until the moment I lay my head down on my pillow at night, and then I still don't rest because my mind is just looping and looping and looping and looping with all the things? I'm busy and controlling and restless and questioning and planning and organizing and thinking and talking and reactive and walking and talking and quicking and jumping and judging and all that, but never really getting anything accomplished, and the piles just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So again, we have to start with the brain. Such a complex network of neural pathways, and only works optimally when we feel safe and connected and in right relationship with ourselves. and others. And I, if you can't tell, am a brain geek. Absolutely love, love, love the brain. And it probably started when I was, I don't know, 12 years old. And my baby sister, who was 6, fell down a flight of stairs in front of my eyes. I was working out. I was in middle school. We had a rowing machine in our basement. I might have been 13. And she came running down the stairs, our basement stairs. And she had on one of those bunny suits, we called them, but they were the zipper up all the way from the toe to the top, one-piece pajamas with the footies. And they were well worn. And she ran down the basement stairs to tell me that a boy was on the phone to talk to me. And she turned on the stairs and fell backwards in her excitement. And my dad had just built these cellar stairs, basement stairs, and hadn't put the railing on yet. And he had just left for work, and he worked the 4 to midnight shift. My mom was upstairs making dinner, and she turned her body, her little tiny body, and she fell over backwards and crashed into a metal shelving unit that my mom had put all of the vegetables that she had canned for the winter. And the shelving unit, she fell into that, onto the concrete floor. Shelving unit went on top of her, and she started seizing. The ambulance came and got her and took her to the hospital, and she had a right hemisphere dysfunction. She had a right hemisphere infarct to her brain. And she was a very changed child. Back in the 70s, we didn't have traumatic brain reintegration treatment. And I was so curious about how my little baby sister, who was this very docile, sweet, beautiful, passive, just gentle child, turned into this very rageful human. And watched her as she grew. When I was 6 years older than her, watched her as she grew, struggle with all of the cognitive things about making good choices and all of that. And because they didn't have good brain reintegration treatment, it just was a puzzle to me. And I think I was always very drawn to understanding better about the brain. Anyway, so I want to talk to you a little bit about this. Prefrontal cortex. We have to know about this. This is a critical thinking brain. If you ever sit in an IEP team meeting for any of your kids, or you're in a 504 planning meeting and you hear a psychological evaluator say, this child has an executive function disorder or an executive function delay, they're talking about the prefrontal cortex of your student's brain. They're talking about that this part, the prefrontal cortex, the part that plans and understands and processes and regulates and does all of the big learning, is offline and cannot work in an integrated way to do high level perceptual abstract reasoning and math and science and logic and all of that. It impacts working memory and thinking and planning and remembering and doing. And oftentimes when we're in that fight, flight, freeze, submit, or fawn, that's when the amygdala, this is the hand brain model, this is the prefrontal cortex, that part right there, that red lit up part. And when that part, when human beings feel safe and protected and integrated, meaning right and left hemisphere and all the neurostructures that support that and the neurochemistry, serotonin and dopamine, and all of the lovely neurochemistry that supports that, is flowing in a lovely way, in a safe way, it all supports this part. And I can do my own optimal learning, whatever that is, in my own developmental space. And I can hear you, and I can pay attention to you, and I can optimally take in the information and do the best I can and learn and retain. But if I feel a little bit afraid or a lot, or a little overwhelmed or a lot, or a little frustrated, or if I'm carrying trauma and I am in crisis, I am not going to have the support of this part of my brain. I'm not going to have access to that, because my amygdala, this part of my brain, right here, the protecting brain, is going to be what is going to be in charge. It's this little teeny tiny area that sits behind my prefrontal cortex, and it looks like a little almond shaped structure. And its main job is to regulate my emotions and act as a guard dog, protecting me from threats, both real and perceived. When I feel grounded, centered, calm, cool, and the incoming information is directed from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex, then I can make reasonable decisions, and I can learn in my classroom, and I can hear you when you direct me and when you teach me. But when I'm stressed, all that goes out the door, and I am only left with a few things. I can fight with my words or my body, so I can react. I can run away, which is called flight. I can freeze, or I can fawn or submit. I'm in survival. And you see this with your kids all the time, all the time. So it's super, super important. And I'm going to go back to this. Remember when we were doing our mindful moment that I said that brain science, this is out of Harvard Medical School, nearly 47% of the time that we're awake, we're engaged in a memory, having a thought, or making a plan. This is the neurotypical brain. So now take that thinking, take that brain science that we know, and then add stress to that. So if we only have half the capacity of our prefrontal cortex to begin with, because we're daydreaming or mind wandering anyway, because we're in automaticity, we're not paying attention, this is only half of what we've got. If we were really to dial in and focus, we could have much higher capacity to really pay attention and process and get a lot done if we just got hyper focused on this and got rid of all of the daydreaming stuff by being more mindfully aware. But think about if I'm under crisis or stress, and if it's toxic daily, what happens to that number? Integration. If I'm integrated, I have the ability to attend. I have memory and reasoning and judgment and problem solving. My language center is high. I can have working memory. I can evaluate. I can make good, responsible decisions. And when I'm not, I'm flipping my lid. So this is tricky because it impacts my central nervous system, and I have to have a calm central nervous system. When my calm central nervous system is regulated, I am able to pay attention, and I have the heartbeat that's slow, and my respiration is good, and I don't have to go to the bathroom, and my eyes can see you, and I'm okay. But when I'm upset, I'm dysregulated. My body is not going to say, you're all right, you can sit here. It's going to say danger. I'm going to say, get me out of here. So I'm going to have to go to the bathroom. My heart's not going to feel good. I'm going to have to throw up. I'm just going to need, my body's going to protect me, and it's going to get me away from the danger. And I'm not going to be able to pay attention to math or science or reading or writing or learning a new language. It just isn't going to happen for me. So that's why I need an adult, in my school that's going to be regulated, because I'm going to need that person to do that, his or her or their work before they get to school, so that if I'm a dysregulated child, little, medium, or big, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if this child is 3 or 16 or 19. Doesn't matter. The human central nervous system and the amygdala brain, if we are in fight, flight, freeze, doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter. I still need you to be regulated so that you can help me co-regulate it. And telling me to calm down or telling me to breathe is very different than helping me do that. So if you come to work and you're dysregulated, if I'm dysregulated, I'm going to become more dysregulated. But if you come into work and you're regulated and you've taken time before you come into work to take 3 slow, deep breaths and to ask yourself, how am I feeling? And where am I feeling that feeling in my body? And giving yourself a second. And maybe even way before that, before the alarm went off, or once you've hit the alarm, before you swing your legs out of bed, You give yourself just a moment, whatever your higher belief is, or if you don't want to go that route, just give yourself a second to think of the things you can be grateful for, because gratitude is one of the highest, most effective ways to just fill your body full of joy. And when we sit in a place of joy, it changes our whole structure of our brain in that moment. Joy makes us feel good. If we wake up grumpy and we think about things we're grateful for, our family, our home, our health, it changes our neurostructure just in that moment. And then we swing our feet out of the bed. And if we can sip our coffee or sip our tea and truly, truly enjoy whatever breakfast it is, give ourselves a little extra time in the morning, just a little bit to enjoy the food, actually taste it, not gulp it down as we're running out the door. Just be good and kind to this body that's trying its really hardest to go be impactful for youth who need us to do that work, because they are trying so hard to show up and learn new things. And your kids are trying to do it all while learning a new language. So I've done this whole song and dance for you, and I just want to tell you thank you so much for listening, and a little about me and why I'm so passionate about this work. Before I came to the Department of Education, well, like you all, I wear a lot of different hats, and I'm a mom and a wife and an educator, an SEL specialist, friend, colleague, daughter, all of those things. But the biggest choice in my life is being a mom to these two beautiful children right here. And as you can see, I have a daughter and a son. And this daughter who just is very out and very responsive and just doesn't need to cover and doesn't need to close one eye and doesn't need to go within in this inflection place. She's a very responsive human being. And her entry into this world was very typical. Birth was very typical, and she was a C-section, but she bonded very immediately. Attachment was very immediate. And her baby brother did not have the same birth. He had significant trauma, and you can see that he has this need to cover. And when he is in an embrace, you can see he's in a little bit of, even though he loves his sister very, very much, you can see one eye closed, his whole central nervous system, because he was in the NICU and he had difficulty with feeding and he had retained birth reflexes and he needed tons and tons and tons of PT and OT and developmental optometry and difficulty, like I said, with eating. And so all of those things impacted his ability to learn language, to learn all the things that other children were able to just naturally, all the developmental markers to just naturally acquire. So school was hard, parenting was a challenge, and we had to learn. I, as his mom, and my husband, as his father, had to learn new ways to really help him thrive. I can tell you that both of our children are adults now and doing beautifully, wonderfully. Hannah is an art teacher in Bucksport, Maine, and our son is a precision machinist and dump truck driver, owns his own landscaping company. But he did everything in a tactile, sensory-driven way, and he was the biggest lid flipper expert teacher I have ever been gifted to know. And I'm so grateful that these two children chose me to be their mom, because they were my best life teachers. And because of him and Hannah being responsive and reactive children, internalizer and externalizer, of course, Hannah being very excited about having a little baby brother coming at 2 years old, her little world changed too, because she had a very safe, predictable, certain world until her brother came. And instead of her brother coming home being a happy little baby, he didn't come home. He was in the hospital. And then when he was able to come home, her parents and her family were in a bit of crisis, which changed her central nervous system, right? So the whole family structure was different, and it changed her, I didn't even realize, honestly, as her mother, until later, when anxiety internalization started showing for her. So these children showed me, and I started really paying attention on purpose to their behaviors and their, I'm going to get to some other things with you about, how you can support social emotional learning with your students. But they were my biggest life teachers. And I started teaching children in schools about flipping your lid. And teachers really started asking me to please write these things down. And I did not know how to write these things down, but I was bit by a little bit of inspiration. And little by little, I started creating stories inside of my brain. And lo and behold, I did do some writing. And in 2019, Some Days I Flip My Lid was born. And that really is loosely framed around my son, reactivity. And then Some Nights I Flip My Lid is the sequel. Both of those books are about my children. Hannah is an internalizer. Doyle she's the silent sufferer. Doyle is the externalizer, lid flipper. And then it led to the spinoff series with Some Days I Breathe on Purpose, which was just released this past November. And in June, our book, Some Days I Make Mistakes, will be released. So Hannah is, like I said, an art teacher in Bucksport, Maine, and she is my illustrator. And this is the Calm Cool Kids series. And Maine DOE knows that I'm an author, an SEL specialist, and a mindfulness practitioner. And these books are used all across the country to support children in social emotional learning and mindfulness. And I'm very proud of them, and I'm happy to share that with you. So we need to know that the most important thing that we do with kids is to care more about the kids we teach than the things we teach the kids, because we do not teach kids content. We teach children how to learn content. We have to care about them from the human being place. This is just a depiction about that. Again, this is just another. At the Department of Education, we have something called a student cabinet. And the number one indicator that's shared to us by middle and high school students who serve on the student cabinet is a concern for mental health. And they want to know that they are safe in our schools. They want to know that all children feel valued and represented. And they want to know that the connections that they have with their teachers is real, and they need to feel safe so that they can learn. And this is what we hear over and over and over from these children who represent all counties across the state of Maine, from 4th grade to seniors in high school. When we think about social emotional learning, the goal for SEL in our schools is to promote and improve students' attitudes and beliefs about themselves, their relationships with others, and their education. And this is just Katie, an elementary teacher. She says it sounds so simple, but if we as teachers put more effort into who we are teaching more than the what, that it would take care of itself. So again, it goes back to what I said. If we cared more, if we were allowed and we were given permission to care more about the kids we teach than the things we teach the kids, I think we would see a significant change. I am here to tell you that our Commissioner of Education cares about that message. And she is not saying we stop teaching kids how to learn new languages and we don't stop teaching math and reading and writing and science and all of those important things, but that we put relationships and connections and safety and representation and equity and diversity and all that at the top. We make emotional intelligence and social emotional learning the foundation that everyone does. And if we could do that, that we would start seeing all of these things fall into place in such a significant way. And I just want to say that, we have to do this because It's our legacy. How do we want to be remembered by students? If I were to ask you to write down, to think about and write down who your favorite teacher was, you would be able to write down that person. And if I asked you, why did you write that name down? I would bet $100 it wouldn't be because that person was the best teacher of that subject. It wouldn't be because you said, oh, he taught me how to conjugate a verb. He was the best, English teacher I ever had. It would be because that person remembered you, valued you, saw you, breathed belief in you, that you felt seen by that person. Equally, if I said, could you please tell me who were the teachers along the way that you really did not like, that you just didn't feel a match with, you really dreaded going into that person's class, you would be able to write those people's names down like this. And if I said to you, why, you would tell me something like, I felt embarrassed, he embarrassed me, or she embarrassed me, or there was a time when there'd be a situation that had a very emotional limbic response. You would have some type that situation, that person caused something, a discomfort in you. You would remember that. It wouldn't be because of the subject. It would be because of what happened with that relationship that got severed in some way. And if I said to you, name all the teachers you've ever had in your life, there would be a whole string of teachers that you had in between, right? From the time you started school until the time you exited college, there would be a whole bunch in between that you just don't remember because they didn't connect or they didn't matter along the way, sadly. So it's about mattering, belonging, and connecting. Noticing. It's simple, it's a concept, but it's tricky when we're overwhelmed by all the things that we're doing. So paying attention to your students, their actions, the body language, the drawings, the behaviors in the classroom, that's going to tell us volumes, even if they aren't speaking English yet, right? As their English improves, they'll be able to share more and more through speaking and writing. These are some of the things that I've taken away when we talk about embedding SEL into a curriculum. What we're talking about is looking at the students who have experienced disruption in some level of their social and academic lives, and many students who have experienced hardship and loss, illness, trauma, deep levels of stress and anxiety. We want, this is just from a district leader saying, we want them to feel supported. This is what we want everyone. We want them to feel supported, nurtured in their environment. So we want to create climates and cultures that do that. I love this because this wonderful teacher is just kind of showing, keep a calm and predictable, balanced environment. I want to go into that classroom. The colors just feel safe. Heads up for transitions. Some of the things that we can do for social emotional learning and emotional intelligence in our classroom. This is a singing bowl. You don't have to use this sort of thing. It symbolizes it. Make sure that you give your children and empower your colleagues to give kids a heads up for transitions. Those lights on and off and clap, 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 clap. When you have children who've experienced trauma, who are new to this country, who have birth trauma, that is very dysregulating to the central nervous system. So a soft bell, you can program things into your phone, you can program things into your computer, just anything, a visual timer that you can give them attention to, just something that gives them a transition heads up. Allow for sensory motor and brain breaks. When we give kids a chance to move their bodies and get their blood flowing, we re-energize the central nervous system. There are so many great, what am I trying to say? Go Noodle, Go Zen, mindful breathing, wall pushes, bear walks, lugging heavy objects. There's so many great apps that you can use for older kids. There's Headspace, Calm. There's so many things that you can do to help implement brain breaks in your schools and in your classrooms. Your occupational therapist and your physical therapist can be really great resources to help you do this as well. I wanted to show you this. I'm not sure that it'll work. This was This is an app that older students might like. Well, I'm not sure that it'll work. Oopsie. Sorry, I don't want to waste a lot of time. Oh, I think it's going to go. Might buffer. So you can create a calming corner. There are lots of really wonderful apps that you can, you can Google calming corners to see what you could put in those spaces. But you could also have a virtual calming, access to a virtual calming corner. You could just have some spaces in your classroom where kids can go and just plug into this for a little bit. And I could look at this all day. This is lovely. I love it. All right. There's this wonderful jellyfish thing that you can look at. Okay. When we're talking about building in that social awareness, we can teach kindness and empathy and compassion on purpose. We really want that empathy to build community and the culture of respect in the classroom. So the first step is to develop empathy and understand how this can impact the individual. So you can't extend empathy to other people unless you can extend it for yourself. So really spending time helping people understand that they're so much more than the sum of their emotions. They're so much more than the sum of their mistakes. This is really important work that you can do with your students. And whoops, I really want to show you this video too. This is really great for older kids. It's called Under the Surface. It starts out really, really low at first. Okay, so that's called Under the Surface. It's a great film. There are so many good films for older kids. And again, just talking about that really taps into the social awareness piece. That's empathy, compassion, and perspective taking. What must it be like to walk in somebody else's shoes? And we first must really learn these skills so that we can do these. Can we teach these skills, but really do them with our students? And so when I talk to teachers, and this is something that I really had to cultivate for myself too, is really not be in that hurried state. When I was in schools and going to get my kids, as a speech pathologist, I would work with groups of small groups and of kids, and not be in that state of hurriedness, and get so caught up in my schedule, and get so caught up in the doingness of, I have to get this group done and this group done and this group done, and just being mindful that energy that I'm going through my day, that those mirror neurons are being projected onto my kids, and knowing that that my regulation is going to impact, or my dysregulation is going to impact my kids in a very powerful way. And also just noticing, really paying attention on purpose to where my thoughts and feelings and my emotions were on any given day, projecting towards a child, to other people's kids, and thinking about, am I looking at children through a lens of curiosity and interest, or am I getting caught up in a judgment space, or thinking about what another teacher has said about this child or this family, thinking about am I making informed decisions about this family and these children based on what my heart and what I know, or am I being informed by other people? So just really making sure that I'm sitting in that place of knowing, of compassion and care, first, and really being an example of that for my colleagues. So that is really powerful too. I guess lastly, I just wanted to just let you know, for any of you who maybe don't know, that the Department of Education has a wonderful set of resources for you all as educators out there, and community members and family members. Anybody who's working with youth, who loves youth, can access this. This is called SEL for Me. It's a social emotional learning with intention resource. It's pre-K through 12th grade. It's scaffolded in its neurodevelopment. It's for every grade level to teach with intention, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationships, and responsible decision-making. All you need to do is hop on that resource. You can even just go on maine.gov, type in SEL for me. Will take you to that landing page. You have to register by just popping in a valid email. You just fill out the login page, the registration login, and you just put in your own password. You'll have access to it. It's free, it's web-based, it has a ton of free resources for any educator. If you ever have any questions about it, you can always contact me, Kellie, Kellie .Bailey, Bailey, at Maine, Maine.gov. It's being widely used across the state. We have other people in other states who are coming in and using it. I've done a ton of trainings across the state, and we're just hoping that more and more people will use it, give us feedback. We're constantly updating it. We have stakeholders across the state who are helping to inform the work. We're partnering with other agencies so that our messaging aligns with the messaging that other agencies who are partnering with schools, so that messaging is the same. And we just welcome your feedback and input. I hope that this message and training has been informative for you. Please reach out anytime. And again, on behalf of everyone at the department and Commissioner Macon, thank you for everything that you do every single day for youth. And be well and stay safe. Thank you.